Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, here with a fan-based but band-endorsed podcast. How cool is that? It's pretty cool. We have a great show for you today, guys. We are working on the bonus tracks from the album Magician's Birthday. And today we're talking about Crystal Ball, which has two versions. There is the version called Crystal Ball, which is an outtake, which was not released previously. And then there is the outtake version, which is called Gary's Song. And it was a little previous in the production, as we'll hear. And that was also listed as an unreleased outtake. Great song, though. And we're going to get into that. But we've got a couple of reviews, one of which raised a couple of eyebrows, and we're going to get into that before we get into the song. So the first review that I want to read was left on January 31st on the one of the European versions of iTunes. Now, I did not know that iTunes was actually broken up by companies and that it didn't centralize all the reviews. So some of you may have left reviews that I have not found yet, because I actually have to go country by country to find out whether a review was left. My version, obviously, because I'm in Las Vegas, I get the United States version of iTunes. And so whenever I log into it, I'm apparently only getting iTunes reviews that were done in the United States or fall under that umbrella. So I have the codes. I just have to find the time, but I will be working through all of the different country codes to see if there are any other reviews. If I have not read your review, I apologize. That may be the reason why, because I haven't seen it yet. So I'm very excited about that. But this first one comes from Moodman79, and it says, "I am a convert." That's pretty awesome right there. Like, I could just stop right there and be happy with that. But I'll go on. Before this podcast appeared, I would have struggled to name more than 2 Heep songs. Now, after listening to Scott's passion and excellent presentation, and of course, Heep, I can now call myself a fan of Uriah Heep. The depth in their music, the musicianship, see what album I'm on? Musicianship is superb. Thanks for introducing me to Heep and for producing such a fine podcast. Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for listening. Thank you for your review. I really appreciate it. That means a lot to me. I was really hoping through this podcast that I would be able to connect people who may have been familiar with Uriah Heep or not have been familiar with Uriah Heep to dig into this band's wonderful music and enjoy it as much as I do, or at least to some degree. And it seems to be working. These reviews are really showing me that that's happening. So that means a lot. Thank you guys very much. Another one was left by NANA, and the review is "This space intentionally left blank." No, I'm just kidding. It just goes with the name. Heap of Fun is the title of this one, and it says, "The podcast host is intelligent, knowledgeable, and comfortable on the mic. He's deep diving and delivering a heap of great episodes at a tremendous pace. Plus, it's band approved, which is rare for these type of podcasts. Dive in." Yes, it is very rare. And I don't think I would have done the show without it. That was a big requirement for me. And I was very happy to, get Mick's blessing and have him get really excited about it when I first interviewed him for my other show, the Haskincast podcast. And it's just been a lot of fun ever since. A lot of work, but a lot of fun. And thank you very much, NANA, for that review. Now we're going to get to the last review, which is the one that kind of raised a bit of a question. And it set me off a little bit at first, but one of my rules is I never respond or pursue anything that, gives me pause right away. I try and get away from it for a couple of hours, let my thoughts settle a little bit before I take another look at it. And I really like to think that this was left, I'm sure, with the most, gentle of requests and I'm sure that there was no harm meant for it, but we're going to get into why it would be a problem. But being the optimist that I am, in fact, they don't call me Optimist Prime for nothing.
No, they don't.
This, I would like to think that this was left with, just good intentions. So let's get on to it. This is by Andrew Gribble. Andrew, thank you for your review and for your comments. The title is Only One Thing I'd Change. And the review goes on to read, I wish our host would play the song uninterrupted in its entirety before commencing to dissect and comment on it. As it is, I've learned to just listen to the song elsewhere before checking out its retrospective episode. Well, thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. So with this one, I had to take a little bit of a step back because as a musician myself, as someone who makes part of their living from music, from creating and selling music, it's pretty offensive to me because you're just wanting, to get the music for free. We already have problems with as many places on YouTube that people just post albums and post songs without any regard for the artists. And so it's a big problem and a big issue. Now, I could get into the legalities of it, which I don't need to go into here, which there are many, and the moral reasons, which to me would not be fair to the band. And I'm not here to cheat the band out of anything or any band when I do reviews on my other podcast. I try to get the permission of the band to do them if I'm able. If not, if the band is still around, I certainly share that review with the band's management or whoever I can get a hold of. The 2 reviews that I did for the last 2 Dead Daisies projects, I actually worked with Catalyst PR to do those. So, I try to be as respectful as I can, but mostly if anything, it's going to help the band more than anything else. It's not hurting anybody because if nothing else, it's going to promote people wanting to go out and check out the music, which is a good thing. That's a healthy thing for the industry. But legalities aside, there's that moral side of things that it just is not fair to artists to give people a means to not go out and purchase the music that they've spent all the time and the record company spent the money, or if they're, not managed by a record company that they've spent the money fronting all of that. It's millions of dollars and, things like Spotify. There's a lot of controversy over what's happening with the future of music and all of that. So instead of going off on a big tirade like I recorded originally, I'm just going to say that it wouldn't be right legally and it wouldn't be right morally for me to provide the full song in its entirety without any cuts or commentary. I think all of us in the podcast network feel that way. We had quite a discussion in the Deep Dive podcast network about that. And I think we've all pretty much come to the same conclusion. So I appreciate the thought. I think from a listener perspective, it's probably pretty cool, but it's just not a reasonable thing for me or a responsible thing for me as a podcaster to do. So thank you very much for your thoughts. I appreciate the review. Thank you guys for listening to that. And I think now we should just get into the song. What a great riff this is. I love riffs that are simple and yet catchy. They make you want to bob your head and tap your foot and just get you right into the song. And this is a great riff. The guitar sounds great on it too. The drums are interesting because they have that sound that's almost like Home Again to You, just very reverbed out. I don't know if that's just the room that they were rehearsing in or recorded this in or what, but very reverby. Sounds a little heavy reverb on the snare especially, but it's got a good groove. I really like the feel of it.
Disappear in your realm. And the deeper in debt, the harder the bed. You thought you one of a clown. Look out before you sign your soul away. The crystal ball of sea is not a read into today.
I should point out that this is a song I'm not very familiar with at all. I did not know of this song until I found it as a bonus track on this deluxe edition I'm working off of. So I've only heard it once, and that was when I was going through to do just the lyric check for the lyrics that I post in the notes and on the website. So this is really a fresh review for me, but the verse here is really good. It just keeps progressing very nicely. Great delivery on the vocals. But just that riff, man, it just keeps moving things forward. It's very simple. Some nice fill-ins from the bass line. Just good stuff. Good rock and roll.
Does the time seem right for some rethinking? It seems a gift that you had. Oh, you're living a dream of age past progress. It's just a thought we all had. Look out before you sign your soul away. The crystal ball it sees is not reading to the day.
I feel like this is still a little bit in development for a couple of reasons. One, very rarely do you hear Heep playing anything this simple. There's usually more going on, more layers, something else happening in between to keep things moving forward. Even the bass isn't as adventurous as it normally is. So I feel like this is a bit in development. The other reason is because I don't really feel that full voice from the vocals either. I feel like it's, trying to find the right space, maybe experimenting with timing or, pitch or passion or however you want it to be. I don't feel like it's that full delivery that I'm used to hearing. Kind of like, okay, here's basically how it goes. Let me try it. Let me work on finding those spots. Could be part of the reason it was never released. I don't know, but that's just the feeling that I'm getting from it. It's still a good vocal. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel like it isn't. It's like 80% of what you would normally hear from a vocal from these guys.
Oh, you should have known better. When the warning light was lit, as it did for others. You preach a sermon when you talk of the Messiah. We are yet to discover.
I like that part. That's really, really nice. But again, it goes back to, I feel like it's just really underdeveloped because it's just not like Heep to leave that much open space and not have some kind of fillers or sound effects or a synthesizer or something in there. So I feel, again, I think that just strengthens my view that this was really just a work in progress at this point. Really cool, though. I like the potential of it. I really like that part. And I like the way that the vocals are on that, too. Really nice.
Does that time seem right for some rethinking? It seems a gift that you had. Oh, you're living a dream of age past progress. It's just a thought they all have. Look out before you sign your soul away. The crystal ball it seems is not reading to the day.
It's strange to say because I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but it feels like it's picking up a little bit in power. It's like they're like, okay, yeah, we got it. Let's put a little more into it. I don't even know what I'm hearing that I think is more, but it just feels like it's stronger somehow. Like they're more comfortable with the stage of development of the song. I really like these parts too. I can't say enough about that. I think they're great.
Oh, you should have known better. When the warning light was lit, as it did for others. You preach a sermon when you talk of the Messiah. We are yet to discover.
I think I could see why the song wasn't included in the album. I think it's a good song. I don't think it necessarily would have fit in, but as my usual caveat, I would say that that could be very well because I just know the album as I know it, and anything that's added to it after, 30 plus years of listening to it just seems out of place. So that could be part of why I feel that way. But I think with the starting and stopping, at least the way the song is presented now, I think if they filled in some of those airy spaces, it might fit in a little bit better. Really hard to tell without actually hearing it. But I really like the foundation of the song. I would like to see some further development on it, to be quite honest. But what a great drum fill that was, wasn't it? In fact, it's so good, I'm just going to start that clip over from right before the drum roll so we can hear it again. It's pretty weird to hear a drum build like that, just that dun, 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 without the accompaniment to go with that, to give it that power. Like normally you would hear, a nice chunky guitar, maybe a keyboard backing it up, just every hit, just jin, 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 to make the drums heavier and make it a bigger build. And here it's just the drums doing it, which is kind of interesting. Doesn't really have the same kind of power. I like the idea of it. It seems a little out of place, but that certainly is an idea that could have been developed and might have been really cool for the song. But it's certainly just interesting and a little odd to hear it without the whole band jumping in to do that build together. Wow, that was some pretty low singing right there. Really nice dynamic range showing off, maybe just trying to figure out what was the best way to sing the song. Again, just kind of furthers my feeling that this was just a rehearsal that was caught kind of still in development. But it was a good song. It could have worked maybe on this album, but maybe on another album. It's interesting when you're working together and you create an album and then you go on tour, and then you go to start the next album. A lot of times bands don't necessarily go back to what they were, working on previously that didn't make the album, the cutting room floor stuff. Most of the time they're taking what they've learned on that tour. They're writing brand new, fresh material, how they're feeling now, based on everything that they've learned up to that point, plus the last, 9, 12 months of touring and where they are right now as musicians instead of where they were. So a lot of times those songs never go back and get visited again. And that's okay, because now they're writing with who they are now, and they're not trying to reconstruct something that might feel out of place with where they're at now as writers. So it can go either way. I'm really glad that this got included on the deluxe version because I think it's a good song. I'm glad I heard it. I would be curious to see what they would have done with it. But of course, we get what we get, and we have what we have to enjoy. So that being said, let's tiptoe a little bit through the alternate version of this, which is called Gary's Song.
Come on, Lee. It's a difficult counting to follow, Lee. Does this appear in your realm? In the deeper in debt, the harder the bed.
Well, I might have to take back what I said earlier, because this actually sounds like a more developed version. It's got a thicker sound to it. The vocals seem to be more passionate, I would say, a little bit more passionate. Could just be my imagination, but based on what we've heard tonight, or early in the morning or whenever you're listening, it's tonight for me while I'm recording it. But it does sound a little bit thicker and more developed. I really like this. I like where it went.
Oh, preach a sermon when you talk of the Messiah we are yet to discover.
Yeah, this is a lot heavier and more developed. So I don't know if the title-wise, it seems a little bit backwards to me because it seems like Crystal Ball was less developed than Gary's song. But for some reason, it is the way it is. And I'm glad they included the version because I think it sounds really nice and heavy. Let's hear a little bit more.
You preach a sermon when you talk of the Messiah we are yet to discover. Thinking, loving, feeling, but disbelieving. Thinking, loving, feeling, but disbelieving. Thinking, loving, feeling, but disbelieving. Thinking, loving, feeling, but disbelieving.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they're still developing the ending of it. I mean, it's definitely more developed overall. It's heavier, it's thicker. The sound is better on it, but I feel like they're still trying to figure out how to handle this part because normally you would be hearing multiple voices doing harmonies and spots, maybe a counter melody, something in there. And this seems a little bit thin for what you would typically get from Uriah Heep. So maybe that was the intention, but I feel like it's just really still searching to figure out how to handle this part. Musically, it's there just working on that vocal approach, but very heavy, really great song, fantastic work. And it would have been nice to see a full version of it, but not every song is destined to be released. Not every song or idea that a band has or starts putting together or even finishes is destined to be released. So we're lucky we got this, and I just, take that and enjoy it as best I can. Well, sure, you got to have a little fun with it, right? Great song overall. Like I said, I think it has a lot of merit. I think it has a lot of good stuff in it. Would have loved to have seen a polished, final polished version of it. But as it stands with what we get, I think it's an enjoyable track. I would definitely listen to it again. And it's interesting because certain albums that you've heard over and over so many times, the ones that are your, I guess, desert island albums or whatever you want to call them, your go-tos when when you need a pick-me-up or whatever. This is an album that I've gone back to so many times in my life. I can't even fathom the number of times I've heard The Magician's Birthday. But so that kind of puts a certain fence around it, I think. And if we heard, let's say, like a European version where the tracks are out of order, like we experienced with Salisbury, everything then becomes not the album we know. And we hold those memories so tight and so dear that to introduce anything to it is kind of, lobbing a fireball at something and saying, hey, we're going to tear this down and rebuild it. So it's weird to introduce other tracks from those sessions when you're so used to those albums, and it really challenges the nostalgia of it. But in a case like this, I think it's great. I think it's a good song. I would have liked to have seen it included somewhere. But it was included here on the deluxe CD edition, so we get that, and we just got to enjoy it today. So thank you guys very much for hanging with me. I hope everyone has an absolutely fantastic weekend. We will be back on Monday with another episode of Uriah Heep, The Magician's Podcast. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, The Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!